Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today, along with our guests, Adam Hirsch and Clark Taylor of the Trust for Public Land, for our first Creation Month faith conversation. I want to thank Scott for that wonderful positioning and pitch from the pulpit today. It was just fantastic, and also thank our pastors for the really inspiring and beautiful, motivating service. I'm Catherine Welch-Howe, and I am on the session, and I'm head of spiritual formation, and I'm also a member of the Vision and Planning Commission. So a lot of this is sort of an outgrowth of that, and with the very able help of Jake Pudich. So many thanks. So I want to introduce Adam and Clark. And just by way of saying, you might wonder, what does the Trust for Public Land, or I'll refer to it as TPL, have to do with Westwood Presbyterian? And as you know, that Westwood Pres has long been focused on trying to bring our mission in harmony with the earth, and the stewardship of our land, and having healthy, livable, balanced communities. And we, as many of you have been involved, we have cleaned up beaches, we have built Habitat for Humanity houses, we have planted gardens at Path Buildings and Esperanza Elementary School. Our new buildings will all be LEED certified buildings. And we recognize that as a part of our work with and for these other missions of housing and hunger and children and families, it really needs to be holistic, that of people in harmony with the earth. So in planning, with vision and planning and thinking about our future, and looking at our future in the face of climate conditions, we realize that we can work with other churches and public organizations to broaden our effectiveness. And these kinds of opportunities really abound. In fact, growing out of a Westwood Pres game day last November 5th at Esperanza Elementary, a new collaboration for both hands-on experience and a model of public support was seen all of a sudden as having a possibility. So Esperanza Elementary, one of our mission partners, as many of you know, is an LAUSD school just west of downtown LA. It serves an inner city population that is characterized as extremely low income. And unfortunately, it is also characterized as being in one of the densest, most polluted areas of not just the city, but the state. Its asphalt playground can register daytime temperatures of 120 degrees. So we, as also many of you know, we got to Esperanza Elementary years ago when Sherry and Don Morrison, Sherry is head of mission and outreach, wanted us to have a more direct relationship with a community in need. And so out of friendship and fellowship, we established this extraordinary partnership. And I hope, if you haven't been there, that you'll go on April 27th to see this school. So, enter the Trust for Public Land. For 50 years, one of our country's most effective environmental organizations, and it now has a program which is called 28 by 28, which Scott referenced today, where it intends and is already underway in greening 28 Los Angeles school playgrounds, just in time for the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. So Esperanza, now thanks to a lot of conversation in the last few weeks and months, is now at the top of TPL's Schoolyard greening list. So here to tell you what the project will look like and how we can be a part of it are our speakers today. Clark Taylor is a program director at TPL's Los Angeles office, where he engages both with the schools in planning the playgrounds, what will be there and what will be where, as well as with the partners and project managers who will ensure that the schoolyards are greened properly and beautifully. Clark has a master's degree in landscape architecture from Cornell. Adam Hirsch is the first director of philanthropy in TPL's Southern California office. He's an alum of the University of Vermont, and he came to TPL from Chrysalis, where he helped marginalized people find meaningful employment. So I'm personally proud to be a member of TPL's California Advisory Board. And it was at that game day last November, and hearing Esperanza Principal Brad Rumble speak about the school's dream to green the schoolyard, that the idea of collaboration between Esperanza, our church, and TPL arose. Think it was providential? I believe so. So I'm very pleased to introduce Adam and Clark to you now, and for our conversation to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Catherine. Appreciate it. Really nice to be here with you all today. Thank you for sharing some of your Sunday afternoon with Clark and I. We'll jump right into this. We're going to talk a little bit about Trust for Public Land, a little bit of context and history, a general overview. We'll also talk about our Green Schools initiative broadly, and then we'll focus in on Los Angeles and our 28 by 28 campaign, and it sounds like there'll be plenty of time for questions at the end too. So we believe that access to the outdoors is a fundamental human need and essential to health and well-being. Someone I met recently said that being outdoors is a shortcut to happiness, and I absolutely believe that that's true. But beyond that, we have a great need right now to take better care of our natural environment, and I think it's unrealistic to expect people to care about the environment if they haven't been exposed to the environment. So that's one thing that we're trying to do, is expose folks to the outdoors. To put it simply, people need parks. Why do people need parks, and why do people need outdoor spaces? Well, numerous studies show that access to green spaces and improves physical health, lowers stress levels, improves mental health. And what we're also seeing is it improves educational outcomes in schools. Communities that have access to the outdoors are more resilient. The spaces that they inhabit are going to be lower temperature in terms of heat island effect, and they're going to be better able to manage water runoff from storms, and they're going to have lower instances of asthma because the air will be cleaner. Those communities are also more equitable. Outdoor spaces and green schoolyards bring people together. And what we do is we try to find opportunities to maximize our impact by targeting and working with communities that currently lack access to the benefits of the outdoors and outdoor recreation. With the importance of the outdoors and access to the outdoors, I find it personally shocking that 100 million people still don't have access to a park within a 10-minute walk. 10-minute walk is about a half a mile. Out of that 100 million, it's about 28 million kids don't have access to outdoor space. We're looking to change that. It's an ambitious goal, improving the lives of 100 million people. We're doing our best. We need as much help as we can get. Just last year, we celebrated our 50th anniversary in San Francisco. So looking back on the last 50 years of Trust for Public Land history, we protected 4 million acres, We've created 5,300 outdoor spaces. That includes parks and school playgrounds, as well as trails. We've secured $94 billion in public funding, and we've connected almost 9.5 million people to the outdoors. We have a long track record of being successful in this space, but every one of these individual numbers has a story and a community that was involved in making it happen. We're committed to health, improving our community's health by bringing the access to nature and the outdoors to everybody. Mental health, physical health, numerous studies show that they're improved by spending time outdoors. Equity is super important to us. Everyone deserves an opportunity to be outside and connect with nature. We're trying to close what's known as the park equity gap, one park and one community at a time. Typically, the communities that lack access to outdoor spaces are the same ones that would benefit the most from it, like Esperanza. The Esperanza neighborhood school, really the only outdoor park near it is MacArthur Park, and it has its ups and downs. It's not always the best place for kids to play, though, unfortunately. With what's happening with the climate and the environment, creating spaces that are climate resilient are more important than ever. All of our designs, and Clark will share more about this, but all of our park designs within schools incorporate numerous natural elements that improve water runoff, water quality for the broader community, and reduce heat island effect. We're a national organization. We've been pretty successful in this space for 50 plus years, but we don't come into the community telling them what they need. We go to them asking them what they need, and we work with them hand in hand to make sure that the finished product, the park, the trail, the schoolyard, is reflective of their wants and their desires, because it is for them. We have 4 initiatives that we work in: lands, trails, parks, and schoolyards. Some of the most beautiful lands, personally, that I've ever seen, we've been involved in. We have a project in San Francisco that we're working on right now called Tiburon. It's a 100-acre open space that we're protecting. I was just there a couple days ago, actually visiting it for the first time. And if you imagine what California looked like 100 plus years ago or more, that's it. It's never been developed, never had a tree cut down, never had a building put on it. So it's just remarkable to be able to see these spaces and participate in saving them. It's for the benefit of the communities that live around there, and will have better recreational access because of it. The trails work that we do, I think, is really exciting as well, because, trails are great, obviously, for exercise, but, literally they connect communities to each other. I think in this day and age, being connected with each other is more important than ever. So I sort of like, the literal and sort of figurative element of what our trail work does. Our parks, include everything from pocket parks, which would be like less than 1 acre, pretty small, in dense urban communities. I saw a few of those just recently in San Francisco, to, larger parks that, your kids may have played at, or maybe you have played at growing up. We'll create them or transform them, taking a park that's already there and improving it. Again, with, local communities telling us exactly what they want in those spaces. In our school initiative, which is what we're really here to talk about, we create green schoolyards for communities that serve as a hub of empowerment and belonging that, by the way, provide improved health and climate resiliency. And not only that, we found numerous studies have showed that kids that have access to the outdoors do better in school. LAUSD recently cited that asthma is a big reason why kids aren't showing up for class. Asthma outbreaks or attacks. Cleaner air improves asthma and gets kids to show up for school, which directly impacts LAUSD funding. LAUSD has funding based on what we call, sort of crudely, butts in seats. So if kids aren't showing up, the schools aren't getting funded. Planting trees, making engaging play space increases the chance that kids want to be at school. but it also cleans the air, so it makes for less sick days related to asthma, and ultimately improves funding at LAUSD schools. All of this stuff is really connected, is what I've been finding. In terms of equity, parks in majority non-white neighborhoods are half as large and serve 5 times more people than parks in majority white neighborhoods. It's a pretty shocking statistic, in my opinion. And folks in those non-white communities, Latino and Black voters, they prioritize these spaces. They want them in their communities. So we're trying to work with those communities to provide them. That's how we really maximize the work, the impact that we have, is by working with communities that lack equitable access. And personally, being a father of a 5-year-old, making an impact for children is very motivating to me. I think to all of you. We believe in an outside for all. Not every community has a park, but almost every community has a schoolyard. So, if every schoolyard in the LAUSD system, which is about 1,000, was a green schoolyard, all of a sudden about 88% of LA city residents and unincorporated areas would now have access to a park within a 10-minute walk. So that's what we're trying to do. And, I love talking about this stuff. Clark and I are passionate about it. But I think it's beneficial to hear from kids and hear from principals and see the work. So we have a short video that I'm hoping will play. At this portion of the presentation, we'll go in a little bit more in depth about our schools and 28 by 28. And Clark is leading that program in LA. So we'll bring up the expert to talk about that. Thanks, Clark.
Thanks, Adam. So just to kind of explain a little bit about what we mean by green schoolyard, right? So anyone here go to school, elementary school, or have kids go to elementary school in LAUSD or anywhere basically in the LA basin, right? So what schoolyards tend to look like. Large asphalt pad, maybe some basketball hoops, some tetherball poles, maybe a playground, maybe kind of what we used to call as a kid the back 40, some kind of like an unturfed dirt area, way back in the back where you can play soccer or things like that. And there are reasons, some of them good, some of them bad, why schoolyards in Los Angeles look like this. But we just it's become clear based on the research and kind of what you can see around you is that how these schoolyards do not deliver on what kids need, right? And so it was mentioned I went to school for landscape architecture, so I've drank the Kool-Aid, so forgive me a little bit here. But parks, I'll start outlining what parks can do for health outcomes. They promote physical activity. They promote healthy lifestyles. They do a lot of great work for communities as public spaces, as gathering spaces, and they do a lot of really important environmental work, stormwater management, cooling, air purification. Parks and plants, they do all these things really well. And schoolyards, especially for thinking about kids, is a great place for some of these goals and these benefits from park-like facilities to have a broader reach. And so schoolyards, by kind of working with school districts to replace some of these asphalt-intensive kind of paved areas with some park-like facilities, we contribute to better education outcomes, better health outcomes, better environmental impacts on both the school itself and the communities that they serve. Here's kind of a busy slide here, but with a lot of the benefits of green schoolyards. You see improved health, improved immune function, decreased ambient temperature, better test scores, better motor skill development. And one thing that's been really interesting, some of our colleagues up at Occidental College have found, is that these green schoolyards with this non-traditional kind of facilities and equipment, they tend to lead to girls doing a lot more play and having a lot more physical activity than kind of the asphalt facilities, which tend to be oriented more to the kind of activities that boys are interested in. So these kind of projects increase not only kind of community equity, but also gender equity and all these things that are really important for student development. As Adam mentioned, we've been around since 1972. We built over 200 schoolyards in New York City, where our schoolyard program started. 2/3 of our work is in communities that are defined as majority minority or majority Black, Hispanic, Asian, or other communities of color. And we tend to install these schoolyards in communities that have lower incomes and less access to financial resources. So that's our kind of national program. As we move into California, Adam mentioned some of these kind of dramatic stats about people who don't live near a park. And so, 23 million people in California could not walk to a park within 10 minutes of their house. And of those 23 million, about 10 million are children. And there are, 10,000 public schools in these same areas that could be converted to green schoolyards that could provide some of these park-like benefits. One project that we completed in 2020 up in Oakland as kind of our kickstarting our program here in California is the Cesar Chavez campus. And here you can get a little bit of a sense of the improvements there. In addition to it's not just kind of greening can mean a lot of different things, but it's not just kind of throwing some landscape out there and hoping that it works. These improvements, they're meant to do a lot of different things. There's bioswales for stormwater management. There's outdoor classrooms. There's opportunities for learning and direct engagement with nature. And so it's more than just kind of aesthetic improvement. It's about doing the kind of improvements that help kids get what they need. And then so that's a small image there, but to kind of talk about the program we're here to talk about today, LA's the 28 by 28. So the goal is, using the momentum of the 2028 Olympics to kind of, get folks on board with using some of this excitement and momentum to improve, to build, or at least kick off 28 schoolyard greening projects in Los Angeles County, but mostly in the city of Los Angeles. We've been hard at work at this already for the last 4 or 5 years, and things are really starting to get rolling. We just in December of last year and January of this year, we received funding to facilitate the greening of 8 schoolyards in Los Angeles and El Monte. We have one that was just completed at Castellanos Elementary, kind of in Pico Union, that just had their groundbreaking, which we'll show you some images of. And we have a project down in South Los Angeles called 107th Street Elementary that is just getting its design and construction kicked off. And those are the project that TPL is has ownership of, so to speak. But we're also, and this is a kind of a new development, we're partnering with our sister organizations, in this case, the Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust, to provide resources for some of their school greening projects, which they're the kind of nonprofit that's doing a lot of the legwork at Esperanza Elementary. So we're contributing funding and resources to them to help kind of spread our footprint of, or reach as far as we can in improving these schools. An important part of this work is the Living Schoolyards Coalition. So that's a group of nonprofits, people from, city council members' offices and a whole bunch of different folks, representatives from engineering trade groups that get together and strategize about how we can have the most impact with our schoolyards. And one of the things they're working on now is putting together a really detailed letter to the school district to try to push for some of this agenda to, sometimes you're dealing with a bureaucracy that doesn't want to change. And so it's leveraging all of our collective resources and our our abilities to kind of advocate for certain things that we could do much more effectively as a group than we could individually. And so to kind of talk a little bit about the projects, it was a very nice introduction. But I think you could say that when introducing Adam and I, that Adam raises the money and I spend it, So I'm not the one trying to build parks, and putting a lot of this philanthropy money to work, try to, and make these kind of projects happen. So this project at Castellanos Elementary, which is, off Washington and Vermont, more or less, or around there. So here's what it looked like before. This kind of, those of you who raised your hand for LAUSD, schools growing up, this should look very, very familiar to you. And so our team got together and with a lot of really great partners and funding from the state, was able to kind of put together this kind of project. And so you have a very nice turf field in there. This area down here at the kind of bottom right, left, I guess, your left, is an outdoor classroom. There's shade trees, there's plants, there's stormwater retention. A really great 20 new trees, really great facility. And just as kind of a funny story, what the students really wanted, because part of what TPL does is our outreach is not just in the community, it's also in the classroom. So the students actually help us design the project. And the one thing we kept hearing a lot was basically they wanted a soccer stadium. Yeah. And so we said, we can't give you a soccer stadium, but we can give you a nice play field, and we can put some benches around there for people to watch, and you can get, as close as we can. But as you can imagine, this is going to be a well-used and well-loved space that's going to provide a lot of benefit. Those trees, they may look small now, but, in just 5 or 6 years' time, they'll provide meaningful shade and cool the ambient temperature in a way that can really make kids more comfortable, allow them to play, to exert themselves in kind of in more intense ways, and kind of bring out those benefits of physical activity. And then the project that you all know the best, Esperanza Elementary. Again, this is, as was mentioned, it's in one of the most polluted parts of Los Angeles, both in air quality, in groundwater quality. It's a very diverse student body with a lot of lower income students who qualify for free lunches. And the project will do a lot to provide a lot of shade. Even when we were just out there touring a few weeks ago, the principal was showing us around, and it wasn't even that warm of a day, but we started feeling like, we're out here in the sun just a little bit too long, because the temperature from the asphalt, was heating us up. And so these shade and this kind of a new play apparatus, a new irrigated ball field, play field, will do a lot to kind of improve the quality of air and the ambient temperatures at this location, and do a lot of really great benefits for the students. And it's something that everyone here at, what do you call it, Westwood Pres, should be really proud of. I mean, it really is an incredible project. So that one, I think that they're hoping to complete that, have it all done by the end of the year, maybe early 2025. And so that's really exciting. Just kind of the next in our pipeline is we're currently working with designers to come up with the plan for 107th Street Elementary down in South Los Angeles. Similar facilities, a turf play field, shade trees, outdoor classroom, play apparatus. One thing we hear a lot is that a lot of these schools, there's a kind of a play, a play equipment, kind of a jungle gym in the kind of tot lot part of the schoolyard for the very young, for the very smallest kids. But the second, third, fourth graders, they don't have the same thing. So a lot of our projects include this kind of play apparatus for the kids, after kinder, first through fifth grade. And so it's a really great opportunity for the kids to kind of have fun and do imaginative, unorganized play while getting physical exercises. Yeah, so just to kind of wrap things up here, and I'm going to read this statement because it's so well worded. But the point of TPL's mission is to get people outdoors, as Adam said, because access to the outdoors isn't just a luxury. It's a fundamental need that underpins our health, well-being, and the strength of our communities. The communities most deprived most deprived of outdoor access are the ones that stand to benefit the most from it. Though through our collective efforts, we're not just opening doors to vast green spaces, we're nurturing healthier, more vibrant communities by ensuring that everyone, irrespective of their circumstances, can connect with the natural world around them. Together, let's commit to breaking down barriers and building bridges to the outdoors. Because when we uplift and provide for those in greatest need, we uplift ourselves and pave the way for a healthier, more connected society. And here's our contact info. So happy to answer any questions or describe anything in more detail, but very much appreciate the invitation today and for you're all taking your time to, hear us out and invite us to speak to you today, because it's something we care a lot about. So thank you.
Yep. So at this time, we'll open it up for questions, and Adam and Clark, if you don't mind reading up here, speak into the mic like and then this is us.
Yeah. Hi, thank you guys so much. So I'm a parent, kids are growing, but I just remember paying parents always with money. They need money for everything, for desks, chairs, everything. So how do you maintain these middle space? What kind of budget allotment? What do they do to keep it up?
Yeah. So I think the question, just so everyone can hear it, is around the cost of ongoing maintenance for these projects. Probably, Clark?
Sure. Yeah. It is a real challenge. And I mentioned earlier bureaucracy. LAUSD employs, maybe 75, 80,000 people, right? And so to get them to change their systems that they have in place to do maintenance is a lot of work. And so we get a lot of pushback from kind of our partners in the district. But part of what, and this is a lot of the work that the Living Schoolyards Coalition does. Like currently we're writing a design guidelines and a kind of operation and maintenance best practices manual to share with the district staffers. Because though there may be some challenging transition times that would involve resources, a lot of the work that's been done has shown that with some small adjustments, places like this aren't actually that much more expensive, because you have maybe more frequent but less expensive required interventions. It's much easier to repair leaky or damaged utilities underneath the turf field than to dig up an asphalt pad. And so you kind of, though it's it probably is in the long run, it is a little bit more expensive, and that's always something that's a concern. With the right planning and with the right preparation and kind of getting everyone on board, you're all able to minimize kind of the difference between what it takes to maintain current schoolyards versus what is required for these type of spaces.
What are opportunities for sort of hands-on involvement at Esperanza as you get the concept going?
Yeah, so the question was, what kind of opportunities are there for hands-on involvement in Esperanza? What we could do with that is we could connect you with our partners at the Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust, who are kind of project managing that project, and they could tell you more about that. But I can say that at Castellanos Elementary, which just opened up in January, there was at least 2 or 3 kind of parent and partner volunteer days. So parents of the students at the school and kind of our partners, like you saw the video that we're meant to watch was from Nike. They had sent a lot of volunteers out there as well. And we did a lot of planting plants, weeding the gardens, spreading mulch, things like that. So that's one opportunity. I know in other places, like in New York, parents, especially kind of PTA or PTA adjacent parents, they do a lot of the maintenance work to fill in the gap of what it costs to maintain these kind of spaces. So they organize folks to parents to come out and do weeding and nothing that requires kind of a yellow vest or a hard hat, but some of the work where folks can feel like they're engaged and they can make a real impact, weeding, spreading mulch, planting plants. And so I would say that we can pass on the contact for our colleague Tori at the Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust, but she would be able to tell you more exactly about what could be done at Esperanza.
I have like maybe 3 questions. One is, when you come in with grant money and, and obviously that school and the district have, supported and agreed to give you access, do you kind of let's say, use some leverage to have even a bigger footprint? Like maybe you say, we're going to do this project and I don't even know if it's true, but you guys got to up your recycling, no single-use plastic, for example, like a little bit of a raising all, I don't want to say it like in a, strategic, like Machiavellian way, but just, that you do even more than just that project, and trying to raise everybody's aspirational goals to do more on the environment. That's my first question. Does that happen when you're doing projects?
I wish it did. It doesn't. The frank answer to that is that our school district partners are maybe not as supportive of these projects as you might seem or you might think, and so we don't have the kind of relationship where we can kind of tug them along. We're kind of grateful to do what we can, and we it's such an awful phrase, but we kind of stay in our lane a little bit more. We've learned that that's kind of how we can make the biggest impact.
Okay. Second question, what in the green spaces, it seems like, especially in LA, and a lot about this, with the water shortage, well, we used to have water shortage, but, whatever, that's maybe changing, because that is, anyway, short story, that's being managed, okay, and so, do you want to, is it turf or, is it better to put in plastic turf or is it better put I know from an environmental standpoint, I know there are trade-offs because those are a lot of venues off gassing and the kids and all that. You don't want that, you want real grass. But how do you decide about that? Turf versus real grass?
Yeah. And so the question is, how do we kind of manage the any additional environmental impacts that go along with greening, especially as it relates to real grass versus artificial turf? And I should say, I use the term turf during the presentation, but in the landscape world, turf is grass. I meant real grass. It's always real grass. So we can't take away those things, but you may or may not know that the cooling effect that happens, the difference between an asphalt play yard and a one that has plants, is actually the plants evapotranspiring their water and just slightly cooling the ambient temperature. So yes, you're using water, but that water directly kind of meets our goal of cooling this environment. The intent for all of these projects is to catch, to the degree it is possible, clean and reuse any irrigation water or rainwater that's captured on site. So that's not a zero. You'll never not have to have more water inputs for these projects. So the water use is a real thing, and it's a concern. The picture we saw of Castellanos Elementary, and I'm sure will be the same at Esperanza, it's a native turf grass blend that uses as little water as possible. The trade-off for that is during the winter months, it does get a little bit brown during the dormant phase. But yeah, this, I guess, you recognize that the water is a real question that really matters. And so you try to minimize how much potable water is needed by the new intervention, try to recycle as much as possible. And then you try to also understand what that water is giving you, not just a beautiful green landscape, but it's actually helping to cool the play yard, which is one of our main goals.
And that's right. Great question. I noticed a lot of fencing, and so is there a design component about security, but also access? Is there trade-offs? You said, these can be considered parks for residents. Well, kids are playing there, and I don't know. You have some safety issues and things, and you have doggies, and they're pooping, and what does that really mean when the rubber hits the road, so to speak, of public access? In a real park for the community. What does that really mean in terms of the security one?
Right. Yes, the question was, how do you balance security and access, especially if the parks are going to be used or the schoolyards are going to be used as public parks? So there's a lot of different ways in which these green schoolyards are public. I guess the most aspirational one is called a joint use facility. So that means that at 4 o'clock or whatever, the gates are open and the schoolyard can be used as a public park. None of the projects we have now reach that level, that maximum openness, but we're working with our district partners to figure out how to make that work. Down in the city of San Diego, they've done something like 200 joint use facilities at their schoolyards. And they've thought a lot about this. One of the things they have to do is they have to put up a new fence in between the building and the schoolyard because they want to be able to lock that in the after hours. And so there are some there are things we wish could be a little bit differently that could kind of play out differently on the ground. More fencing is not something we'd ever kind of advocate for. But I would say right now our main goal is to build these great schoolyards, show what a benefit they can be to the students, and kind of, entice the district and our partners at City Hall to see what kind of benefit these could offer the community as an open space, as a park, and continue to work with them to break down some of those barriers that are kind of standing in the way of that, so that we eventually can have these be true joint use facilities that are open at least part of the time to the community at large.
Yeah, curious about if you're able to go back to that slide on Esperanza. I know several of us are familiar with the campus. Can you just talk through a little bit about the changes that'll happen with your plan?
Yeah, so as far as I understand it, and again, that would be a question for Tori from the Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust. I don't want to speak out of turn, but here's what I can say. That area back in I guess it would be the southeast corner of the lot is going to be planted with, similar to what we saw at Castellanos, kind of a green playfield. It's going to be shaded on both sides or with trees. These areas are going to largely stay the same. Where the basketball and tetherball courts are, this is going to become an outdoor playground or outdoor kind of education garden or classroom with native plants and shade trees. And then up here is going to be another kind of bundle of outdoor classrooms and play facilities. There's a large play apparatus up here that be open to all the students, shade trees through here, kind of some benches and other seating areas for outdoor classrooms. Then you'll have, shade trees planted throughout the property to provide more shade impacts, for more shade for the students, kind of in a casual environment, sitting and reading books and things like that. Do you know much?
Yeah, Tori from LA Neighborhood Land Trust provided some stats. 57,000 square feet of asphalt or hardscape surfaces will be removed. It's a ton. 20,000 square feet of native plants will be planted, and there's going to be 38 new trees, which would increase shade canopy by about 70%. We're also going to install 52,000 square feet of permeable surfaces and 2 site-specific green infrastructure installations to help capture the water. So it's a pretty, if you've all been out there, it's a massive concrete area. You could see all these are new trees.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's their green space right now.
Yep.
They've created just that area.
Is that where they're needed?
Yeah, a corner. And then, so you can see the scale to this is kind of everybody else.
Yeah. So it'll be pretty remarkable. And one thing too, I wanted to answer one of your questions, or just add to it, was the idea of like trying to do more than, what the project entails. And, Clark's answer is absolutely right. But also I would say we're trying to build momentum around this movement so that when schools in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years go to do some renovations, there's a critical mass of schools in the community that have gone green and have these amazing spaces. And the community will put additional pressure on them to meet that level of quality. And hopefully, our design guidelines or a version of it will end up in the LAUSD maintenance manuals, and it will be the new standard. As Clark said, it's not maybe as direct as we would like. It's a work in progress, but that's ultimately the goal. Yeah, thanks. Mark.
Yeah, I be really be with Esperanza and the principal and the property. I was extremely encouraged by your elicitive quality rather than strict, asking the students, asking the teachers, faculty, asking LAUSD, partnering with LA Neighborhood Land Trust. From the landscape perspective, in relationship to the potential for hands-on participation, how restricted is the design to what we are accustomed to in dealing with Esperanza? Brad calls us up, says, hey, we've got a project we're getting ready to instill in. We want to do some blending over here and some bringing up over here and some cleaning up over here. Do they have license to do things within the design?
Like the principal after the project's completed, or?
Correct.
Yeah. So sort of what opportunities does the local staff, the principal, have to improve, maintain, and manage the work after it's completed? Yeah.
Is it strictly maintaining what is established as part of the design, or do they have license to be a little creative?
Yeah. So, anyone heard the term value engineering before?
Yes.
What's another word for that? Cuts, right? Cuts. And so this project, I'm sure they've done a great job, but I don't know all the details, but I would venture to guess that they're not putting in everything that they hoped for at this project. Some things had to be value engineered out. And so not everything's done. And so there will be opportunity to do that. And it's not as if, that this is not meant to be kind of a, set in stone forever. If things come up, and things change, then yes, the principal can either through kind of a bootstrapping, parents' involvement kind of effort can do that, or if they need to raise more money to do something bigger, all of that's completely possible. It's not, they won't sign a contract that says, the design has to stay like this forever, or you have to contact us again to change it. Those options will always be open to the principal. Yeah.
That's like Carol and David Tennant. You have one more question after that.
You talked about the bureaucracy. Where are those specific kinds of areas of resistance, and how can they be advocated against or
Sure.
in City Hall, LA?
Yeah. So one of the big ones is, and I just want to say this the right way because it.
Say the wrong way.
Well, but I think it's important. It's important to acknowledge, though, that different groups, different partners here have different needs and different agendas, and so they make their rules or how they do things based on their particular needs, right? And so those needs are important and ought to be respected. But the facilities maintenance division of LAUSD is very frequently putting up roadblocks to doing any kind of change, any kind of outside the box thinking. And they have big budget concerns. They don't have money to hire new people, to train them in new ways. And so it is kind of I would say that's one of the biggest ones. You do have some pushback at the school board level. Some folks who maybe are more interested in directing resources at kind of establishing a network of charter schools versus kind of improving existing non-charter campuses. And so Yes, those are two of the big ones. From the city side, the parks tends to be very open to any of these kinds of discussions, but I guess a lot of the facilities maintenance folks are where we get a lot of unexpected pushback.
Your finished projects are so beautiful and dynamic, and you touched on this a little bit. Sounds like there's collaboration on each project at each school, but can you tell us a little bit about the design process for these individual spaces and how the schools are involved and how that goes?
Sure. So for the schools that TPL is working on, we have a 10-week curriculum. Usually we're figuring out ways to kind of broaden this, but usually we choose we work with the principal to select one of the higher grade classes, 4th or 5th grade. We do education where we talk about stormwater management, biodiversity, a lot of the kind of what goes into thinking about these things. And then they do a couple of design charrettes where they vocalize what they'd like to see happen. We sketch that out. We work on that, kind of get something that works for everyone. Usually we get 2 or 3 of those iterations. Then we take it to the whole school, kind of an assembly, and let the kids vote on it or let the kids comment on it. So that's kind of how we work directly with the school and that's one track. On the other track, we work with licensed landscape architecture firms to take that kind of concept plan developed by the students and put it into construction drawings that are going to be safe and meet all the best practices and kind of, give us something that it's going to be long lasting. So yeah, very cool.
How'd you pick the 28? Or maybe you haven't picked?
Yeah, we got 10 that are funded, and we got 5 more that are kind of identified. It's a complicated process. We talk to the school district. So it's a number of factors. We want to choose campuses where we can have a big impact. We do try to orient these projects into the communities that need them most. Maybe thinking about diversity or income of where the schools are located. And then also we talk to the district and, they might just tell us some schools off limits for some reason, right? And so we work with them to kind of get their input of where they think the biggest impact could happen. So community, kind of quality of the campus, and then the school districts all their own roadmap.
And is it a mixture of charter schools that are on the USD property and non-charter schools? I mean, it is a little bit of everything.
Yeah, so far there's been both. I would say that the majority, if I was to guess, I would say the majority will be non-charter campuses. They'll be typical campuses. Yeah.
Catherine, I think will be our last. The good one.
Thank you all for getting back. That was a terrific talk today. And I just, looking at this, and Scott and David was saying, you kind of have to go there to see how large this space is. It will be the central park of that area. The other schools that they're looking at, as I drive around LA and see certainly the downtown schoolyards, they look more like prison yards than schoolyards. So the transform and empower this is so great. And I would just say, it's my understanding that we are really working hard to make these open and accessible to the communities as parks for after hours. And not only in San Diego, but in New York, most of schools have the facilities, like what is it called? The
Joint use, yeah.
It's a joint use facilities. Brad Rummel tells a funny story of his first week in Esperanza where he was working on a Saturday and he heard this thud, 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 and he realized it was people climbing over the fence and coming in to get sucked in. So I know it's his goal to just be able to unlock the school. And one of the reasons that these joint uses work is that the community has such a stake in them. And in New York, maintenance, security has, because the community embraces them so fully, it has not been an issue. So between 226 schools in New York City that the same lot. And I would think that LA would be able to at least match that. So, and the money. Just I want to make sure that we say that not only in, for the most important is for the school kids. And one of the ways that we might be involved is getting larger trees that is shade out of the outside for the kids. And I just want to...
Yeah, thank you for that. It is true. We are working hard, and it is important. Just no great answers, I guess, for right now. Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And then can I create...
What do you think one in?
As because that's constant fun for the last 5 years. Then I stayed bordering and densely settled and so one idea was what they call community school parks, where the school would agree in evenings and weekends and summer to be open and have park and recs invite staff and be able to have activities with them. It has been micro progress in those 5 years. And I know it's somehow linked to this one now, but I can also say, well, in fact, like CMTV open, they also are so short-staffed to start with, and then to do this, and then the principals want to be sure that any maintenance that needs to be done, during the off hours has to be done by method parks, and so anyway, that's another very piece of it. But something I know the same committee in LUSD that's still in 28 by 28 is also dealing with that COVID. So hopefully, but it's not at all going to be augmented.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry, Jake. Those were beautiful comments, but I just got to get one last question to put into this. How much of the material that you take out do you recycle demo days? Do you get to recycle on the line recycle? Because I know it's very limited. Like when we take these buildings down, there's this going into the landfill. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
Industry for that.
So it's not recycled on site, unfortunately, because of safety concerns.
Yes.
And the asphalt, is basically oil that's just been kind of leaking into the soil like for 50 years. And so we do, our specs do encourage the contractors to, it hasn't followed best practices for recycling. So soils are not taken to landfill wherever possible. They're taken to one of these soil remediation places, and there's budget for that, but beyond that, I don't think that there's a lot of kind of next level recycling. These aren't lead facilities, things like that. So not as much as would be perfect, but we try to write it in as best we can.
Well, on behalf of Westwood Presbyterian Church, I just want to thank you, Clark and Adam, for being here today. There's so much to do with this project. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Thank you so much. I trust that people can go to tpl.org to learn more. Is that right? What's the best way to...
Yeah. Oops, sorry about that. You can do that. Also, our contact info is on the slide here, and we have business cards too. So feel free to reach out. But feel free to contact us directly. I mean, if you have questions, really.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all.